Hello everyone, I'm Jamie, an art director with Jerry's Artorama. I've been working professionally in the arts for over 15 years, and today I'm going to show you how to create a simple painting of pansies with the Daniel Smith Watercolor Floral set. First I start off with a sketch, and this is just to make sure that I have some guidelines of where I'm going to put the color, mixing my blue and purple on the side of the palette. One of my favorite things about the Daniel Smith Floral set is that I have plenty of room to do my own personalized mixing. And I'm making sure to get enough water because I want to start off with a lighter color in the backgrounds of these pansies petals. And I outline the petal and I come back to fill it in. I'm not too terribly concerned about filling in the entirety of the petal, because one of the beautiful things about watercolor is being able to use the white of the paper or the color of the paper in your paintings, and you can use it as highlight. And one great thing about the brush I'm using, it's the Aqua Stroke Grow Brush. It contains a well for water, and so if I feel like my color is being a little too saturated as it's coming out on the paper, I can just apply a little pressure to the brush and I will get a little bit more water to help me desaturate a few areas. And this is great. It helps me work quickly. I don't have to go back to the water basin, and it's just a really efficient way to work. And I'm going back with some of the color that I already have made and not using as much water, just using the more pigmented color that I've made to highlight and bring in some of the details in the foreground petals. This Aqua Stroke Go watercolor brush really helps me to get the details by allowing me to control the flow of the water from the brush. It also helps because it gives me the flow of water directly from the brush, and I can allow the watercolor to sort of do its own thing and give me these beautiful effects where, as you can see, this blue just bleeds right in, creating the effect of veins in the petals. And since I've definitely decided that this is where I want my background petals to be laid out in this composition, I'm going back and creating a deeper color, another wash over. The Daniel Smith Floral set, these paints are just really wonderful for layering. So right now I'm creating my second layer, and then later I'm going to come back and add more color on top of that, and you'll see how that creates this gorgeous blending effect, and you can create a more natural look because you'll have more colors or a more vibrant look. The paints will actually work with you and help you get some really amazing effects. Now I'm coming back in for my foreground petals, helping to outline and create more differentiation between them with the darker blue that I have in the palette. And I'm I'm coming back in with a little bit more of my desaturated color up through the sides of the petals to help give me that veiny look that pansies have. Now I'm going to start adding in some of that yellow. I am working from a photo, and this pansy is a bright blue with a yellow center. So I'm going to start with a light wash of the yellow, just to see how that lays out and layers over the blue as well as it gets further out to the edges of the pansy's petals. And while I'm letting that dry some, which will be a very short dry time, I'm going to start working on the next pansy here. And something I love about this paper actually that I'm working on, working in the Reflections watercolor journal, is that this paper is nice and heavy. It's a 140-pound weight cold press. So not only does it have a lot of sturdiness to it, and some great texture, it also really soaks up the pigments that I'm working with and the water, and it allows me to work very quickly. I don't have to, say if I'm working with the wet on wet technique, don't have to get out the blow dryer every time and wait before beginning the next part of my painting. Again, I'm using more of the paint, not so desaturated with the water, that I blended together on the palette for my foreground petals, and applying a little bit more pressure to the aqua stroke brush for the foreground or the background details, or the lighter details, so they are not as saturated. Now I'm coming in to add those vein details of the petals, allowing the water again and the paper to work in my favor. And I like the layout of this pansy so far, so I'm going in and adding another darker layer over the background petals and some more detail. And a little bit of the blue to the red on my palette. I'm going to start doing some multicolor layering to add more depth. So the purple that I'm adding is not only acting as another color in the pansy, but also it'll be acting as the shadow, and I'll be adding more blues to help differentiate between the different petals and show where the shadows fall as the painting goes on. And adding some of that purple I've mixed and some more of the foreground petals to give them some more depth and also help add a little bit more detail. And coming in again with the much more saturated, straight off the palette paint color that I've mixed for the very foreground petal and make it nice and bright. And now I'm going to take my yellow, and this front pansy, in the photo I'm working with, it has a very, very bright yellow, very saturated center. So I'm just going to take some of the yellow directly from the palette and work it over the painting I already have. I don't feel the need to create that personalized color because this palette already gives me 6 great colors to work from for natural observations such as flowers, landscapes, and I'm going to be working on the layering process now. So I have to think about the paint that I already have laid down and how that is going to look with the paint that I'm layering on top. So starting with just a nice solid yellow looks really good over these pinks and blues, creating that transition from yellow, orange to the pink, from the green, from the yellow to the green to the blue. Now I'm going to mix together a personalized color again. I like the brown that's in the palette, but I want something a little bit warmer and a little bit sort of earthier looking. Something you would sort of see out on a brighter day. So I've mixed some of the brown, the red, and just a little bit of green, and bringing it into that blue pansy to create some of those center details, and just letting my brush gently scrape across the paper in some areas to create, again, the veiny appearance. And I'm not applying a whole lot of pressure. I want my brush to really work with me instead of against me. And the more pressure I apply, the more paint and water gets soaked into the paper, or the bigger the stroke, and then the less, of course, the lighter the line, and then I can use the paper to my advantage as well. Now I'm going to go back in with a pretty watered down brush and just blend. And now I'm going to go in with the blue and outline some of the edges of these petals and also bring that blue into the center. And that's just so I can get some more definition of the edges of the petals where the shadows fall and where the very center of this flower is going to be, the opening. And for the eye of the second pansy and the veins, I'm going to add some more green to the brown I've created on my palette and bring it into the centers of the petals, and again with a light hand come in and create those veins. And I'm going to bring that same brown down into the edges of these petals and help really create more of a three-dimensional look to this flower, and bring these veins up through the yellow and allow the colors to blend. And again, applying a little bit of pressure. If I see an edge that is too harsh, just applying a little bit of pressure to the brush so that some more water will come out onto the paper, and I can use that and blend that edge as I see fit until I'm happy. Now I'm going to go back with some of this red that I've mixed in the palette and add just a few more details on these back petals, help them pop out just a little bit more. And now I'm just going to continue layering. And I'm going to add some more details in the center of the flower, the eye of the pansies, with the green. I want to tone down this front flower just a little bit because it's not quite as saturated. I want in my photo, and I want these flowers to be vibrant, but not overly saturated, not like we're looking at something like a neon painting. I want it to be fun but soft. Now I'm going to go in and outline the stems of the flowers and now the leaves, and really I'm just going to brush the color in there. I have guidelines drawn out, but I don't feel the need to stick too closely to them because as I see the paint going down on paper, my idea of how I see this composition turning out, or how I feel what I've drawn already might look. I feel like there will be changes that I want to make as I go. So as I put the paint down, I'm more able to see how I would like the final composition to end. And again, I'm using a lot of colors I already have, personalized and mixed on the side of the palette. And I absolutely love having a messy palette because it gives me so much more to work with than the original 6 colors provided. But these 6 are just really wonderful to work with. And I love creating small paintings like these in my studio. They're great warm-up practices, or just if I have a little bit of time and want to relax for a few minutes. This Reflections watercolor journal is great. It's small, it doesn't take up a lot of room. And if I were painting these pansies outside, this would be the perfect kit for me. We just have this little sketchbook, these 6 colors that blend so beautifully, and this Aqua Stroke Go brush, which already has the water in it, and I don't have to worry about any mess. And now I'm taking some of my personalized green that I've made and adding some shadow, some darker areas, giving my background of leaves a little bit more depth. I'm not taking that dark color all the way to the edges of the leaves because I want to allow the edges to show some light. Working with watercolor, quite often the goal is to create the illusion that something is there. So I'm not trying to fill everything in. Again, I'm allowing for the paper to be part of my painting and using it to my advantage as highlight. And now I'm starting to add in some extra little leaves to the composition, just where I feel like I need them, and some final details. These areas were not necessarily drawn out, but I feel like it'll make the composition stronger. And adding in the final soft purples and blues for this pansy that's budding down here. Just a few more details of shading in here, making it a little bit darker so that the stems and the pansies pop just a little bit more. Take in some yellow to the leaves and greenery just to brighten it up a little and bring in the center yellows of the pansies to the outer edges. So all in all, this is a great kit to work with: the Daniel Smith Floral set, the Aqua Stroke Go brush, and the Reflections watercolor journal. It's great if you need space or if you want to take your projects on the road. Thanks for watching and following along. I'll see you on the next After the Swatch.